Hello hockey fans and welcome back to another video. When you think of siblings playing in the NHL today, one pair that should come to mind are the Subban brothers. After all, older brother PK has been one of the league's top defensemen over the last decade, posting 426 points in 713 games, while younger brother Malcolm earned a full-time roster spot in 2017 and has spent the last 3 years as a backup netminder in the league, posting a 30, 23-7 record, a 2.97 goals against average, and a .899 save percentage in 66 career games. Given that PK has struggled to keep up with his Norris Trophy winning play over the last few seasons, especially this most recent year with the New Jersey Devils, and considering Malcolm has yet to reach the 100-game milestone, you would be forgiven for placing these brothers lower down your list of the NHL's best sibling duos in the year 2020. That said, both of these guys are still very good hockey players. I mean, they were both high picks in their respective draft classes, and have spent quite some time in the best league in the world. That's not an easy thing to do, you know. However, the youngest Subban brother would also become a pro hockey player, but his career would turn out much differently than his older siblings. This is the story of Jordan Subban, the other Subban brother. In order to tell this tale, allow me to take you back to May 7th, 2011, when Canadian defenseman Jordan Subban was selected 5th overall in the 2011 OHL priority selection by the Belleville Bulls after scoring 64 points in 68 games with the Toronto Marlboros AAA under-16 team. Jordan would then join the Bulls roster for the 11-12 OHL season and look to develop his game at the major junior level in the hopes of following in his older brother's footsteps and one day getting the chance to suit up in the NHL. Though his rookie season in the O would provide mixed results, since he scored 20 points and posted a -23 in 56 games, the Canadian defenseman would come back with a vengeance during his sophomore year in the league, notching 15 goals and 51 points in 68 games, while posting a +22 in the process. This explosion on the stat sheet not only helped him earn a spot at the CHL Top Prospects game, it also coincided with his draft year too. In fact, Subban's outstanding performance had seen him garner quite a bit of interest for the upcoming 2013 draft, as he was ranked the 54th highest prospect by both Future Considerations and Hockey Prospectus, just 11 places lower than where his older brother PK was selected in 2007. Being a right-handed defenseman who was a little on the short side and more offensively minded than stay at home, the comparisons between Jordan and his eldest brother were frequent leading up to the draft. Both Elite Prospects and Hockey Prospectus had high praise for Jordan's skating ability, his hockey sense, his offensive talents and his work ethic, but the defensive side of his game had several concerns. Comments that were very similar to what PK received during his draft year. Not only did Jordan struggle to win one-on-one battles or push his opponent off the puck due to his 5'9" frame, his defensive awareness just wasn't up to par, especially for someone playing the position of defenseman. These question marks meant that there was a lot of uncertainty as to where Jordan would be selected in the draft order and how he would develop as a player moving forwards, as his defensive attributes were still too underdeveloped to give an accurate assessment of whether he would be able to hold his own at the pro level or whether he would find difficulties. His offensive skills may have been great or even elite, but if you can't play well in your own zone as a blue liner, teams are going to be a little hesitant to draft you with one of their top picks at the event. When the draft finally arrived in June of 2013, Jordan would eagerly anticipate where in the order he would be chosen and by whom. The first and second rounds quickly went by and Jordan hadn't been selected yet, so he would be chosen lower than PK had when he was taken 43rd overall in 2007, and he would be far lower than his brother Malcolm, who was drafted 24th overall in 2012. Unfortunately, the Canadian defenseman wouldn't be selected anywhere close to where he was projected, as the third round also came and went without his name being called. It wouldn't be until the 4th round of the draft that Jordan would finally get his answer, as he was selected 115th overall by the Vancouver Canucks. Despite falling further down the list than he was expecting, it didn't really matter at this point anymore. Jordan had just been chosen by an NHL franchise and now had the opportunity to earn a place in the best league in the world. However, this dream wouldn't quite come to fruition. Once he had been selected at the draft, Jordan would return to Belleville and suit up for the Bulls once more as he looked to refine his game in the juniors before turning pro. During this stint as an overager, Jordan would continue to flex his goal-scoring muscles, as he scored 37 goals and 98 points in 134 games over the next 2 seasons, including a 25-goal season in 14-15 and a place on the OHL's third All-Star team the same season. Unfortunately though, Jordan's defensive play, the one area of his game that needed the biggest improvement, wouldn't get much better. In fact, it somehow managed to regress compared to his draft year, as the 4th round pick would combine for a -23 over the next 2 years, once again proving that despite being able to score goals and put up points like the best of them, Jordan still needed to make vast improvements in his overall game if he wanted a shot at making the NHL. As the 14-15 season came to an end, and having grown too old to continue playing in the OHL, Jordan embarked on his pro career by finally joining the Vancouver Canucks organisation, where he earned a place with their AHL affiliate, the Utica Comets, for the 15-16 season. The Canadian defenceman would end up spending the next 2.5 seasons with the Comets, but was unable to earn a single call-up to the Canucks roster, as his play continued to carry the same problems. His scoring numbers were good, as he put up 77 points in 148 AHL games, but he never posted a positive plus-minus, his worst being a -12 during the 16-17 season. After scoring 5 points and a -3 in the first 16 games of the 17-18 season, it was announced on December 8, 2017 that the Canucks had traded Jordan to the Los Angeles Kings, where he was immediately assigned to their AHL affiliate, the Ontario Reign. Once he was back across the Canadian border, the former 4th round pick would experience a different drawback in his game for the very first time, as his point production began to struggle almost as much as his defensive play did. In 36 games with Ontario, Jordan scored just 8 points and posted a -9, meaning he combined for just 4 goals and 13 points with a -12 in 52 games during the 17-18 season. After his entry-level contract had expired, the Kings quite understandably showed little interest in re-signing Jordan, given his disappointing performance over the last half a year. Having become an unrestricted free agent for the very first time, the Canadian defenceman wanted to remain north of the border and see if he could find a way to bounce back much closer to home, as he signed a 1-year contract with the Toronto Maple Leafs on July 1st, 2018. Having moved to his 3rd organisation in a calendar year, Jordan was hoping that a fresh start in Toronto could help him rebound from his rough season prior, finally turn a corner in his overall game, and become a legitimate, well-rounded player in the minor leagues, and perhaps one day the NHL. Would he do so? Not exactly. The 18-19 season would see Jordan spend the year in the minors once again, as the Maple Leafs assigned him to their AHL affiliate, the Toronto Marlies. Though he would see an improvement in his numbers compared to the year prior, it was only slight, as the former 4th round pick scored 3 goals and 18 points, while posting a -1 in 48 games. Not his most productive season, but it was his best year defensively since the start of his pro career, and arguably since his draft year back in 2013, so at least some progress was made. Baby steps, folks. Having finished his season with the Marlies, and having been told that Toronto would not be re-signing him for the upcoming season, Jordan, now 24 years old, looked for another NHL franchise to give him a home for the upcoming season, either in the bigs or down in the minors once again. When he received little interest in his services from either the NHL or the AHL, the Canadian defenceman was left with a big choice to make. Either spend the season in a lower league in North America, or take his talents overseas to Europe. So Jordan Subban, the youngest of the 3 Subban brothers who had watched both of his siblings take to the ice in the best league in the world, faced the possibility of leaving North America having never suited up in an NHL game, instead spending 4 seasons in the AHL where he scored 30 goals and 103 points with a -30 in 232 games. Now, usually at this point in the video, I would talk about how Jordan never making it to the NHL meant that he failed to be the player he was expected to be, or that he didn't live up to his hype or potential. However, given that he was a 4th round draft pick, Jordan's circumstances are a lot different to some of the other players we've looked at over the last few weeks. Since he wasn't one of the top prospects of his draft class, and he wasn't expected to be a shoo-in on an NHL roster, let alone a superstar in the league, I don't think it's fair to say that Jordan spending his career in the minors was overly disappointing or a tragic waste of his talents. Of course, he did have the opportunity to make it to the bigs, given that he could have earned a call-up by proving he belonged at the NHL level, but you can't say his career wasn't successful because he never made it there. He was the 115th pick of his class. There's always going to be a lot of uncertainty for a player taken in the triple digits. As I've mentioned several times already, I think the main reason Jordan never made it to the bigs was due to his defensive abilities simply not being where they should be for a player of his position. Like the scouting report said, there was a lot of uncertainty as to what caliber of player Jordan would become or what his ceiling would be due to the inconsistencies of his play in his own zone. Deficiencies he never seemed to fix, either as an overager in the juniors or during his time in the AHL. I mean, the guy posted a positive plus-minus just once in 8 seasons. He clearly wasn't a great defender, folks. Now, to Jordan's credit, his defensive play did show some improvement during his time in the minors, to the point where his plus-minus was consistently in the single digits negatively, but as his plus-minus started to go up, his goal scoring went down. For example, Jordan scored 36 points and posted a -12 in 16-17, yet in 18-19 he posted a -1, but scored just 18 points. Now, if Jordan was a point-per-game defenseman who was still unreliable in his own zone, then his defensive shortcomings could have been somewhat overlooked, but since he scored at roughly a point every 2-game pace once he made it to the pros, there was really no reason to keep him or his defensive struggles around long-term, let alone give him a big role on a roster. When his game started to shift during his later years in the A, Jordan essentially traded his decent scoring numbers and terrible defense in order to become mediocre at both ends of the ice, which doesn't last very long in the pro circuit. Could he have carried on playing in the AHL if he had just gone all out on offense and left his defensive game where it was? Potentially, I guess, but I doubt he would have stuck around for much longer. He was a defenseman after all. Part of me thinks that Jordan would have found much more success if he had transitioned to forward at some point in his career. After all, he was a shorter guy with a smaller frame who had great skating and an eye for the net. He could have become a pretty good winger in today's game. Given that wingers are often relied upon the least defensively, and Jordan struggled to be effective in his own zone throughout his career, this position change could have perhaps been his ticket to the NHL. But regardless of how or why things ended up the way they did, Jordan Subban got to spend 4 years of his career playing in arguably the second best hockey league in the entire world. That's a pretty impressive achievement for a guy taken in the second half of the draft. However, Subban wasn't done playing hockey just yet. Following his exit from the AHL, Jordan Subban would make the decision to head overseas to Europe as he signed a 1-year contract with Dornbirner EC of the Austrian League for the 1920 season. Unfortunately though, the Canadian defenseman wouldn't adjust to the European game all too well, as he scored just 5 goals and 16 points while posting a -21 in 47 games, the lowest plus-minus of his entire professional hockey career. After the season came to an end, and having struggled during his first year across the pond, both Jordan and Dornbirner couldn't come to terms on a new contract, so Jordan left Austria and looked for employment elsewhere in the hockey world. In fact, Jordan remains as a free agent to this very day, as he has not signed a contract with the team either in North America or overseas for the 2021 season. So 7 years after being taken at the NHL Entry Draft, Jordan Subban is practically homeless in the hockey world. Now, the good news is that Jordan is just 25 years old at the time of this recording, so he is still young enough that he has time to bounce back in the next few years, and perhaps come closer to being the player he could have been all those years ago. However, will he find a team to sign him, given the gradual decline in his numbers over the last few years, and his difficulty adjusting to the European game? I guess time will tell. Though his career turned out much differently than his older brothers did, and he never got the opportunity to suit up in the NHL, Jordan Subban has managed to produce a pretty decent career for a 4th-round draft pick. Sure, his game was rather one-dimensional for many years, and he could never get his entire skill set trending in the right direction all at the same time, but that doesn't mean his stint in the minors or overseas hasn't been successful. In fact, quite the opposite, as he has managed to spend half a decade in the pro circuit and has over 100 points in 250 games to his name. That sounds pretty successful to me. Here's hoping Jordan can find a new home this season where he can continue to work on his game and hopefully find greater success in his still young career. He might even get the chance to bounce around several European leagues and experience different cities and cultures as he plies his trade across the continent. There's certainly worse jobs he could have, folks? And that's the story of Jordan Subban. What do you guys think about Jordan's career? Do you think he will bounce back and carve out a strong second half of his career over the next few seasons? Or do you think his days as a pro hockey player are numbered? Let me know in the comments below, I would love to hear what you guys think. But thank you very much for watching, guys, I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye! A big thank you to Chris Gadsby, Connor B, John Plomin, Jordan Whitehead, Martin Tolness, Paul Mallia, Roman from London, The Legacy, and Worthless Pieces for helping support this video via Patreon. If you too want to help support the channel a little bit further and get a shout out at the end of every future video, make sure you head over to patreon.com/oddmanrush and become a patron today.